Alright, the reason the distance has been away is because I found the love of my life. I really have. I found the one. You know, that refutation of time and space of searching for that person that's the one. I believe I found it. Now it's a matter of going on the first date. Anyway, guys, so I just throw that in there. Anyway, peeps, welcome to the distance. My name is Julian Williams. Anyway, here's my boxer for the week. It was supposed to be Salvador Sanchez. I'm gonna push it back one more week for next week. I promise I'm gonna do it next week. But this week I'm gonna do Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis, hands down, I think is probably before Vladimir Klitschko, one of the last, one of the last great heavyweights of the '90s. And I'll tell you a little bit about Lennox Lewis. I hated Lennox Lewis as a kid. I didn't like him. And I didn't like him because my father, who watched boxing, didn't like him. My father didn't like Lennox Lewis because he said that he was too safe. He didn't have a chin. He was flawed, this, that, and the other. My dad hated Lennox Lewis. I remember as a kid, and I remember like if there was another boxing match on television and Lennox Lewis was fighting, he would turn on the other fight. Or if there was a football game on, or like a college football game would be on, and Lennox Lewis was fighting, me and my brothers, we would want to watch Lennox Lewis, but he'd turn it the hell off and watch football. So my dad didn't like Lennox Lewis, so I didn't like Lennox Lewis at first. And this is like in the mid-'90s, around this time in the mid-'90s. And, but like, as time progressed, I began to start liking Lennox Lewis a little bit more. Like, when he started to work with Emmanuel Stewart, and when his style pretty much changed. He wasn't as much of a headhunter as he was, once before. He began to learn how to fight tall. He started to fight taller, use his size and height to his advantage in his fights. And it was something that, a young kid at the time couldn't understand about boxing. I didn't really understand the science of it until, I was a good, late teens. I started to really understand the science behind it. And I just remember my dad hated Lennox Lewis. People on my street hated Lennox Lewis because it was like when we would get into these play fights, somebody would be Mike Tyson. Somebody always had to be Mike Tyson. Somebody always had to be Muhammad Ali. Somebody would even be Marvin Hagler or Roy Jones at the time, who was popular. Or sometimes even Pernell Whitaker. Some kids wanted to look like Pernell Whitaker. And, sometimes De La Hoya. People used to love to emulate these guys where I'm from on the street and on the streets, and if you were like a Lennox Lewis, they would laugh at you. And basically, like for me, like Lennox Lewis, like around 95, 96, I started to pick up and started to watch a little bit of what he was doing. That I guess there's more of a science to what he was doing, more so than fighting, because a lot of people where I'm from love to see the fighting aspect of boxing, but not see the boxing aspect, which is what a lot of fans miss out on, is the scientific part of boxing. And when you start to understand and appreciate it, you can sit and you can watch any boxing match, and it's the beautiful thing about being a boxing fan is that if you see like certain fights, and some people are like, wow, these fights are boring, but you look at the fight a little bit differently. And I really learned boxing by watching Lennox Lewis. I learned the technical aspect of the sport just by watching Lennox Lewis fight. He would throw like a single jab, and sometimes the jab, and he would hook off that jab every now and again. He had a good left hook and good uppercut inside. I remember the Michael Grant fight. That's pretty much the fight that made me a Lennox Lewis fan for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm going to be a Lennox Lewis fan. Even though he fought 3 more years afterward, for the rest of my life, I was going to be a Lennox Lewis fan after the Michael Grant fight. If I would have known Michael Grant would be in the position that he's in right now. Like I was thinking to myself, man, this tall guy's going to whoop his ass. But Michael Grant ended up getting knocked out early, and then Lewis got knocked out like a fight or two later against Rockman. And I just remember waiting on the rematch for a long time. I even bet with other people about the fight. I even made bets on the fight of that Lewis was going to beat Rockman, and I ended up having enough money to buy the new Jay-Z CD and the Nas CD at the same time. Because I think it was like in November 2001, so I didn't even have much of anything, but at the time. But so overall, man, I learned the science of boxing with Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis to me was a boxer's boxer. He wasn't a boxer's. He wasn't a fighter by any means. He was a boxer, and he personified the term boxer in the '90s heavyweight era. Because you get a lot of guys that would just fight. Vander Holyfield, he would fight and he would box. Mike Tyson would fight. Even Larry Mercer would fight. Foreman fight. You're gonna get a fight with all these guys, but with Lennox Lewis, you're gonna get a technical boxing match, and it's a style that it's an acquired taste in boxing to kind of appreciate that style, and I think the style has been. I think he did the best he could have done with that style. That jab clinch, right hand uppercut on the inside. Lennox Lewis took a lot more risk than Vladimir Klitschko. He took a lot more risk, but he's very scientific in the ring. You gotta love Lennox Lewis. If you don't care. Anyway, peeps, I'll be back next week for Salvador Sanchez. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.